Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for the Wisconsin Department of Revenue My Tax Account Annual Refresher webinar. My name is Tom Rabine, and I'm the Quality Assurance Coordinator in our Customer Service Bureau. I'll be presenting today along with Nicole Buchholz, a business tax specialist in the Customer Service Bureau. Among other things, today we're going to cover logging into My Tax Account, give an overview of key features of My Tax Account, and show you examples of filing and paying sales and use tax returns and withholding tax returns. We'll also walk through an example of filing a W-T7 withholding tax reconciliation along with submitting a W-2 and 1099 on My Tax Account. If you have any questions during today's webinar, please type them in the questions pane and an agent will reply to you individually throughout the webinar. If you have questions in the future or have questions that may require more time to research or answer, please go to our website or call or email the Wisconsin Department of Revenue Customer Service Team. A recording of this webinar will be available on the Wisconsin Department of Revenue training page shortly after the webinar. We've planned this webinar for about 1 hour, so let's get started. For today's webinar, we'll be working in a training and testing environment, and there may be some differences in screen appearance. Please be aware if you're working along in My Tax Account, you're in a live environment, and we ask that you don't submit any returns or requests that you complete in this webinar. If you do accidentally submit a return or request, please contact customer service at 608-261-5338 for assistance deleting the return or request. Before we log in, we'd like to point out some helpful resources you can access from the login page. First, you can ask Dory, our chatbot assistant, on My Tax Account question. Second, we have training videos available. If you scroll down a little bit in the portal and in the resources panel, there's a link that says View MTA Training Videos for Business, and I'll click on that for a moment. So on this page, the videos will range from general, just an overview of MTA, to specific, a video specifically designed for filing and paying sales and use tax. Let's head back. If you're familiar with My Tax Account, you'll also notice some changes to the layout of the portal and the addition of an optional form of login authentication using passkey authentication. For this webinar, we'll use the authentication method of receiving a security code to log into My Tax Account. If you forgot your username, at this point you can click on Forgot Username and we'll get that username emailed out to the email address we have on file for you. All right, let's log in. And we'll enter our password. We'd like to mention that if you're using email as a security code delivery method, you may have until the last day of the month to file your return, but it might be beneficial to try and log into My Tax Account ahead of time. That way, if you have any difficulty with receiving a security code, you then have time to resolve any issues before filing and paying taxes. Internal servers and the security settings of your business email system may delay or even prevent you from receiving the security code via email. If your business has such email filters, you'll want to add DOR-do-not-reply@wisconsin.gov as a trusted email address. Contact your computer support area or your email provider for assistance. That email address again is DOR-do-not-reply@wisconsin.gov. Please don't send any questions to that email address, as that email box isn't monitored for responses. It's only used for electronic delivery of security codes. Now, if this was your first time logging into My Tax Account, you would now be asked to set up the delivery method for your security code via text, email, or Authenticator app. If you have it set up to receive your security code as text or email, the default will be to send it via text, and that's what we're seeing here. If you wish to receive an email, click on Choose Another Way to Sign In to choose email as the delivery method. For the purposes of training and testing, I'm going to click on the word populate here, and that will automatically put in the security code. Of course, you would get the security code via your normal delivery method and enter that in here. Prior to clicking confirm, we're going to check the box to trust this device. By doing so, a subsequent entry of a security code wouldn't be required unless you log in with a computer that you've never used before, or you've deleted your cookies. All right, let's go ahead and log in. And this is the homepage for the My Tax Account. Before we go into specific sections, just a couple of points on navigation. There really isn't a home button, if you will, on My Tax Account, but whenever you're in My Tax Account, and I'll just click on a link just as an example. So if I'm clicking the link, and if I want to return home, the words My Tax Account at the top of the screen will take you back to the home screen. All right, let's take a look at the tabs that we have here. You'll notice it defaulted to the Summary tab, and that's fairly common. That's because I don't have a favorite set up, and I'm going to touch on that briefly. So if I wanted to set up the Favorites tab, I could click on it, click on Manage, and the reason you may use this, so if you only are using, or if you're only responsible for filing and paying sales and use tax, I can click on the little star here to favorite it, click OK, and then this is what my home screen will look like when I log in. I still have access to the other accounts via the Summary tab, but this will be what my home screen would look like. For the purposes of the webinar, I'm going to undo that. I can just do that by unclicking the little star, and we'll head back to the home page in My Tax Account. So most people leave the default at the Summary tab. So underneath the Summary tab, we see the accounts that we have available, which is fairly typical. The first account that's available is business tax registration. It's not really a tax. It is a way for you to pay the $10 registration fee that's due every 2 years, for example, as its primary use. You'll also notice that it indicates it's biennial, meaning that's due every 2 years. This account has a sales and use tax account and a withholding tax account. And an important piece of information that you see here, you'll notice that for sales and use tax, they are a quarterly filer. And withholding tax, they are also a quarterly filer. We'll be taking a look at these links as we go through and file and pay sales and use tax and withholding tax later on in the webinar. Let's take a look at the Action Center tab. And here's probably what you would expect. You'd notice that there's unread messages, an unread letter, and it'll allow you to update your mail delivery options from here. And it indicates that there is a sales and use tax and a withholding tax return that are due. From the Settings tab, one important point here on the Settings tab is if you're getting your notices from us via US mail, meaning by paper, if you want to change this to electronic delivery, you can click on Paper and read the terms and conditions here. Click on Electronic and Save. So you can change this and back and forth. If you change to electronic, you can always change it back to paper if you wish. Let's head back. And let's move on to the More tab. So underneath the More tab, there are several panels, and let's take a look at the Payments and Returns panel first. The first link there is Request a Payment Plan, typically used for delinquent taxpayers that are going to set up a payment plan with our Compliance Bureau. Manage Payments and Returns. Now, this link sounds like it's where you might go for filing a return, but it's more useful for researching past payments or returns. We'll recommend for filing and paying a return to click on the specific account to file, and we'll look at that method as an example when we file and pay sales and use tax in a few moments. View payment breakdown. We'll show you a breakdown of if you make one large payment for several accounts, it'll break that down for you. Pay real estate transfer fees is used by municipalities. View or cancel scheduled payments. Let's take a closer look at that. Now this link will be in several places in the My Tax account that you can access it, but let's look at it here. So what you're able to do here is if you submitted a payment and it has not processed yet, it's still pending, this is where you can go to cancel that payment. So if you needed to cancel a payment and redo it, for example, this is the link that you would follow to do that. Let's hit back. The middle panel is the Letters panel. Let's click on View Letters. And what you see here are two common letters that companies would have. One of them is a business tax registration certificate that we mail out every couple of years. The second is a copy of the seller's permit. If you do need a new copy of your seller's permit, take a look in your letters folder first to see if there's one there. You can certainly contact us and we can either mail one to you or we can push one to this letters panel for you to print it off immediately. Well, let's take a look at the Messages panel. The first link here is View Messages, and it's about what you would expect. Any messages that we've sent to you will be listed here. Next, we'll go to Manage Email Subscriptions. And here's where you can manage how you wish us to communicate with you. So you can custom tailor that to your business's needs. In the lower left panel is the Submissions panel. And let's click on that and see what we got there. So this Search Submissions will be in a couple of different places in My Tax account. And if we had any pending submissions here, for example, they would be showing, and after we file and pay sales and use tax, we're going to come back to this tab just so you can see what it looks like to have a pending submission. And at this point in time, it only shows, it really doesn't show that we have anything that's processed yet or deleted. And as we file and pay, you'll see additional tabs show up here. The Enter W-2 1099 information link, Nicole is going to give you an example of entering a 1099 from this link later on in the webinar. And the Names and Addresses panel, let's click on Manage Names and Addresses. And here you can add a doing business as if you wish. It confirms this is the legal name of the business as we have it in our system. And if I click on addresses, you'll see it indicates the mailing address, and you can add a mailing address if you wish. Okay, let's head back to the home page. The next link that we're going to take a closer look at is in the upper right-hand portion of your screen, and that is labeled Manage My Profile. Let's click on that. And if you've been using My Tax Account, this page does look a little bit different now. It's separated out into we separated out the profile information into a couple of different tabs, profile and security. So you'll notice in the profile tab, there is a new link here as of the latest update, and you now have the capability to change your username, which you didn't prior to the first of the year. Here you can also change the name on the account, and please note this is where you can update your email address. So please keep that updated with us to receive all the communications that we want to get to you, and here you can update your phone number as well. Let's go over to the security tab. And in the security tab, here you can change your password, set up passkey or authentication app, or update how we deliver the security code to you for text message and email. And at the bottom of the page, here's where you can update your security question if you wish. The Action Center tab is similar to what we saw earlier. And let's go over to the More tab. So there's a lot of stuff here, and let's start in the upper left-hand panel here for Request Additional Access. And the first link there is Request Access to an Account. And the best way to explain that is I'll just give you a little scenario as to why you might be using that. So for example, as a new business, you may just be registered for sales and use tax. But as your business grows, you now need to hire employees. So from the home portal from My Tax Account, you would register for a withholding tax account via our online registration system on our website. Once you've been assigned a withholding tax account, this link is where you'd add the withholding account to your existing My Tax Account profile. And let's take a look, see what that looks like here. So if I click on Request Access to an Account, we would be adding a business account. So I'll click there. Then I'll go Next. And on this page, we want you to verify a piece of information that really only your business should have to verify that you should have access to this account. So in our scenario, which would be very common, I'll choose sales and use tax. I'm going to verify something from the sales and use tax to prove my association to the business. And now I can enter in one of two pieces of information to gain access to additional business tax accounts. I can enter in a total tax due from a prior return, in this case for sales tax to prove my association to the business, or I can enter in a letter ID. And I'll click on this link here, and here are some common types of letters that you could use as a letter ID for verification, such as the business tax registration greeting letter, a notice of estimated tax. This list isn't inclusive, but here's where you would add that letter ID. When you did add one of those pieces of verification, click Next and Submit. You would then have access to all of the business tax accounts for the business. We're not going to go that far here. We're going to jump back to Manage My Profile and continue with our links there. So the next link is Request Access to a Third-Party Account. This is where a third-party preparer would go to request access to your tax accounts if you sign them up to file and pay for you. This would also be used by individuals that might own multiple entities and would like to manage all of the entities under a single My Tax Account profile. The middle panel is Manage Payment Sources. When I click on that, your saved payment sources would be listed here. Now, we don't have a saved payment source, and I could set up a payment source from this screen. I think what most commonly happens when people file and pay, and you'll see this later when we file and pay sales and use tax, I'll save the payment source at that time, and then it will be a saved payment source here. Conversely, if you do have a saved payment source and you change financial institutions, this is where you would go to delete that payment source so you don't erroneously choose a bank account that you no longer have access to as your payment method. Let's go back. We've looked at these links already in this panel under messages. Let's go to manage access. And if you're on this page, you may notice some of you may see all the links here and some of you may see fewer links. And that depends upon what you see in the link under Manage My Access. So if I click here and look at Manage My Access, you'll notice that I am the master account user for the business. So each business has a master account holder. And if you're not the master account holder, then you're probably an account manager. And this just shows that I have all access to the business tax accounts. But what it also means is that a master account holder has more capability to manage users and third parties. You're going to see that in a moment. So an account manager is not going to see all of these links. The second link down is Manage My Users Access. And there's an explanation here of what this is used for, but I'll really give you an overview of that. This function really would be only used by a larger accounting firm. So as an example, if they have like 50 employees servicing 1,000 client accounts, they can create groups of clients and assign those groups to specific employee user accounts that they create. So wouldn't be used by the typical business. Manage other users' access. When I click here, what you're seeing is that there is an account manager, so there is a second user on the account, and as the master user, I can delete this access or manage the access for this account manager user. In addition to that, I can manage third-party access as the master account user. So if I click here, if there's a third-party user, I can either I can delete or limit the access for that third party. If I no longer need my tax account, I retire or what have you, you can inactivate your My Tax account from this link, delete my profile. And there's a link here for close accounts. And you'll notice this link is in multiple areas of My Tax account, and we'll just look at it briefly here. If I click on close accounts, it's actually not talking about your My Tax account, but if you needed to close the withholding account or the sales and use tax account, technically inactivating, because you can always call us back and reactivate it. But this is the link that you would follow if you needed to inactivate the withholding tax account or sales and use tax account. We won't go through that, but that's the link that you would use. Here's that same search submissions link we looked at earlier, and view activity on the right-hand side of the page just indicates the login activity for this particular account. All right, let's return home. And what we're going to do now is file and pay sales and use tax. So you can see the sales and use tax section here. We've got a few different links. We got file, pay, view returns, and we're going to dive in there in just a second. Here again, you see the view submissions link. You can view mail that's specific to sales and use tax at the account level. And again, the close account link. But let's click on file, pay, view returns. And you'll notice that there is a link here that says file now. We're a quarterly filer. So our third quarter has been filed. Our fourth quarter has not been filed. But before that, there are some useful links on this page. And one of them is filing and payment history. And we've only got one filing or one filing and one payment for this entity at this time. But if you've been in business a while and you wanted to look at all of your sales and use tax returns that you filed and paid, that will be listed here. Or you can do a search if you wanted to do just 2022's sales tax returns, for example. View account attributes gives you the basics of your sales and use tax account, the account number, the account start date. In our example, we started it on July 1st, and that we're a quarterly filer. Appeal. So if you had a late filing fee for sales and use tax for whatever reason, if I click on appeal, here's where you can very easily file an appeal electronically and submit that to us. Here again is that close account link, and then request extension to file. If you follow this link, you can request an extension to file, but keep in mind a couple of things. The request needs to be done prior to the due date, and the payment is still due timely. And here we also have the view or cancel scheduled payments link that we've seen a few times already. All right, let's dive into filing and paying a sales and use tax return for the fourth quarter for this quarterly filer. So this takes us to the first page, and there's some handy dandy tips here. This link will take you to the training video, which is about 4 minutes long for filing and paying sales and use tax. This will take you to the ST12 form instructions document on our website. This will take you to a common sales tax questions page and the sales tax rate chart. So it'll break down all the counties in Wisconsin and what types of sales tax they have. Now, the first question is, do you plan to report zero on every line? And that can be an important question for you. There may be a period, or for an annual filer, you may not have had any sales last year. We still need to know that information, meaning you still need to file a sales and use tax return in the amount of zero, so we know that. So if that is the case, you click on yes and click on next. Very simply, it's going to fill in all zeros, and you can click on next and submit, and you've satisfied your filing requirement if you didn't have any sales for that period. Go back. But in our scenario, we are going to file with some sales, so I'll leave the default at no, and I'll click on next. And I'll put in an amount for filing. And you'll notice it's starting to calculate already. These sections are grayed out because it's going to automatically calculate for us. Lines 2, 3, 4, and 5 are any subtractions that you might have based on these particular topics. I will point out that the line 5 for other indicates fill in for sales tax charged if you've included that in line 1. Then you can subtract that out in line 5. Okay, let's move on to our next screen, which will be use tax. For the purposes of our example, we'll leave this at 0. If you do have questions on use tax, this link will take you to the common questions page for use tax. Let's go to next. And do you have any county tax to report? Most counties do have a county tax, so the default is a yes. And for this particular business, in fact, our seller's permit location is located in Milwaukee County. So it does fill in automatically Milwaukee County for us. If there are other counties not listed here where you have county tax liability, you can just click in the box underneath here the empty box, and it'll give you a drop down of all of the counties, and you can add as many as you wish. For our purposes, we'll just leave it at Milwaukee County for now, and we'll just say all of our sales were in Milwaukee County, and we had 0 purchases subject to county use tax. We didn't have any for state. And one thing I will mention, if you don't put any in for Milwaukee, for example, it'll give you a warning on the next screen and have you explain why. Let's continue on. And it says, do you have any city of Milwaukee tax to report? So if you're in the city of Milwaukee, we are for our example, so I'm going to click on yes, and I'll put that same amount. We'll just, let's just say that all of our sales were within the city of Milwaukee. So I'll put in 50,000 for that. No purchases subject to city use tax. And I'll click next to continue. And this is a summary page. It's calculated everything out for us. As you can see here, here's a state sales tax liability, totals it out. If you file and pay on time, you do get a discount, a minimum of $10. That's calculated right here. And everything else is looking good. I can get a confirmation email by clicking yes in the lower left-hand corner. We'll do that. I'll click on next. Take a look at the terms and conditions here from the attestation page, and I'm ready to submit. So now I have a confirmation number for filing the sales and use tax return, the ST12. What I haven't done yet is I haven't paid. So for filing and paying sales and use tax, you'll actually get 2 different confirmation numbers. So from this screen, what you see here is I can create a printable voucher. So if I want to mail a check, I can do that. But the vast majority of people make that payment electronically. And I am going to click on the Make a Payment link. And then it asks me, is this for an amended return? Nope, it's just a regular return. So I'll click on Next. And there's 3 payment options. We've already talked about the payment voucher, where you can print off a copy of or you can print off a voucher so you can mail a check. Most people choose bank account, where you're going to be paying via a checking or savings account. There is no cost involved for that. And then other payment methods, primarily paying by credit card, for example, there is a fee involved for paying by credit card or any of the methods underneath other payment methods. In our example, we're going to choose bank account and click Next. And that'll take us to the payment page. I'll confirm the amount that I'm going to pay. And if I click on the little calendar here, I can choose to pay this into the future if I want. This isn't actually due since January 31st is on a weekend. The due date is February 2nd, so I could pay this on January 31st or February 2nd if I want. For the purposes of our webinar here, I'll just keep it at today's date. Then it's asking for the bank account information. For our training and testing, I have a link here. I can just have it populate a random financial institution. Of course, you would use your financial institution that you normally would. You can enter in your account number and choose checking or savings. It's our checking account. And here's where you can save for future use. So I'm going to save this. Let's say I'm going to be paying out of the same account all of my sales tax stuff. So I'll click on yes. So when I process this, it will save it. There is an important point here in the notes, and it indicates you must authorize payment before 4 p.m. Central Time on the payment due date for timely payment, because that's when the bank pulls the funds, is at 4 p.m. Central Time. You will notice a billing information block on the payment screen now, so that's relatively new. You don't really change anything here. It's just confirmation that that's the billing information for this account. So we're looking good on the payment here. So I think I'm ready to submit. Let's click on next. And I'm going to click on pay. And now I've got my second confirmation number for paying the sales and use tax return. And we're going to take a look at one more thing here. I'm going to go back to the home page and I'm going to click on more. And the reason I'm doing that, I wanted to give you a look at what this pending submission looks like. So here's our search submissions link we looked at earlier. So you'll see now I have a pending submission tab because I have a pending submission for the return I just filed and for the bill payment. If I wanted to delete these since they're not processed yet, I could click on them and delete them if I wish. All right, that's what I've got for sales tax. So now I'm going to turn it over to Nicole and she'll talk to you about withholding tax.
Thank you, Tom. Now we'll look at filing a WT6 deposit report and the WT7 annual reconciliation. From the home page, you're going to want to click on File, Pay, View Returns for the withholding tax account. If you're an annual filer for withholding tax, you're not required to file WT6 reports during the year, so you can just file the WT7 at the end of the year without filing WT6 reports. In most cases, you'll want to file and pay the WT6 by locating the File WT6 Return option listed on this page. If you need to file a WT6 with a zero amount, you can click Yes for the first option and continue on. But for today's example, we will enter an amount for withholding. So we'll click Next. And it asks if you'd like a confirmation email. We do want one of those. And then Next. If you are just filing without making a payment, you can click on the Pay Later option. But in most cases, a payment is actually made while filing. So we'll continue to file and pay using the bank account for our example. But let's look at the other payment methods before we continue. You can use, say, a credit card, PayPal, or even Apple Pay if you wanted to pay at a different method from from this page. You also, to mail in a payment, you'll need to submit the return and then choose Payment Voucher from this page. But for our example, we'll use the bank account and click Next. Also, that is not charged. We do not charge for that. We do outsource that. So if you do a credit card or Apple Pay, they do charge extra for that. So you can click Next. And now we're at our confirmation page. So we do have to confirm the amount. And for our payment today, we'll just use the saved payment source from paying the sales and use tax that Tom had entered. And as Tom stated, you can pick a future date. But for our example, we're going to keep it simple as well and just choose today's date. Down below, just ask for the billing information. Once everything is correct, you hit Next. We do have to agree to the attestation and submit. Please notice how this is different from filing and paying sales and use tax. For withholding tax, we have a single confirmation number for filing the return and making the payment. Once you have everything completed, you're able to print it, view it, but for our example, we're going to press OK. Now we need to get back to the home page. There's two ways to do so. You can click right here. There's a little gray arrow link that brings you right back to the home page. Or you can click the Wisconsin Department of Revenue icon, and that also brings you back as well. Now let's return to the withholding tax account, and let's review how to file a W-2-7 annual reconciliation. So now we are on our home page. You'll do the same steps: file, pay, view returns, and we need to locate the file W-2-7 return link. Once you click the link, please note the filing tips section. Very important. You can get more information, including the form instructions, common questions, the EFW to file transfer link itself, and of course, any withholding updates. Your 2025 W-2-7 annual withholding reconciliation and wage and information statements are due January 31st of 2026. However, this year, since it is on a weekend, as Tom stated, February 2nd would be the following Monday. First, let's discuss a scenario where you have no withholding tax to report on your W-2-7 reconciliation, but have W-2s to report. For this scenario, you'll want to answer no to the first question on this page and submit the W-2-7 with 0 amounts. We still need the W-2s, and you can submit them to us from the My Tax account from the W-2 1099 entry link from the home page. We'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. Before we continue, let's discuss the submission of W-2s and 1099s for Wisconsin. If you have 1099s with Wisconsin withholding tax, you would report those on the W-2-7. If you have 1099s to submit to us that don't have withholding, do not report those 1099s on the W-2-7. Please only list information returns on the W-2-7 withholding reconciliation that actually have Wisconsin withholding tax. We do still need those information returns, however, they just don't need to be listed on the W-2-7. If you have W-2s or 1099s that you need to submit to us that don't have withholding, we'll show you how to do that as stated just a little later. If you have any further questions, please use the links in the filing tips section on this page, or please call customer service at 608-261-5338 for more information. But for now, let's keep our example simple and file a W-2-7 with a single W-2 with withholding. Now, there are several options actually to send the W-2s to our department. The first option is the My Tax account. This option is you're going to key the W-2 or W-2s in right now while you're actually filing the W-2-7 by clicking this My Tax account. File transfer. The second option is the file transfer. Please note that you would select file transfer if you've already entered the wage and information returns using the Enter W-2 1099 information link prior to filing the W-2-7. Otherwise, you would select file transfer if you're going to upload an electronic file to us using that EFW to file transfer link. If you need further assistance or have any additional questions about electronic file transfers, please click on the EFW2 file transfer link on this page. If you have 9 or less than a single type of information return, you can mail them to us without penalty, and you'd select the paper option. For our example today, we will key in the W-2 while filing the W-T7. Once you have that selected, we'll hit Next. Very first question, are we entering any W-2s? Yes, we are. So scroll down until we find the link, Add W-2s. This is our first W-2. We'll enter in the important information for the employee, such as their social security number, their name, address, all right. Then you'll scroll down and you will want to key in all of the financial information for the employee's W-2. For our example, we're going to save a little time and we're just going to key in box 1, and then I'm going to scroll down and enter the state and wage information section. This is where we'll enter the most important information on the W-2, which would be the state wages and the income withheld. Once completed, you'll click the Add button. And now our W-2 has been completed. From here, though, you can click on the pencil icon if we would need to edit the W-2 we just entered. Or you can click on the double paper icon to copy the previous W-2. Or we can click on the X icon and delete the W-2 altogether. If we had additional W-2s to key in, we would click Add W-2 here. But for our purposes today, we only have one, so we'll click Next. And now at the next question, are we entering any 1099 miscellaneous? Again, this is if they have actually Wisconsin withholding. So no, we do not. We do not have any 1099 NECs with withholding, so we'll skip Next. No 1099Rs as well. Now, the benefit of keying them in on the W-T7 is because you'll notice lines 1 through 5 are actually already pre-filled based on what we entered in the previous steps, such as the W-2. So it will calculate all of the withholding for you. It really helps it balance out here. So now all we have to enter is key in our withholding for each quarter. Once that's completed, you hit Next. Now, because our withholding payments throughout the year match the withholding on the W-2 that we just keyed in, notice the W-T7 reconciles, and we do not have an amount due. So would you like a confirmation email? Yes, we would. Just kind of a side note that annual filers will have an amount due here on this page because they have not made any W-T6 payments throughout the year. Now here is a summary of the W-T7 we have just completed. If everything looks correct, we can click Submit on the next page. And now we're taken to the confirmation page. As you can see, we get our 10-digit confirmation number. It even shows the total withholding withheld. Now I want to show you, we'll go back to the home page section, and I want to show you how to key in those W-2s on the standalone. And remember, we could get back to the home page by here, but I want to show you, you can also click on the icon above. It brings you right back to the home page, especially helpful if you're ever lost on our website. Now, if you need to report W-2s or 1099s without withholding, file a corrected W-2 or 1099, or if you want to key them in separate with withholding, you're all going to click on the same link using the Enter W-2 1099 information link. This tool can be especially helpful for those of you that don't have a withholding tax account with us, but need to submit W-2s or 1099s to the department that don't have withholding, don't have Wisconsin withholding. Keep in mind, this satisfies the state filing requirement, not the federal filing requirement for information returns. We'd also like to note these forms are not printable. But let's see what it looks like to key in a 1099 NEC. You'll key in the year and then press next until we find the NECs. So here, if you had W-2s to key in, not on the W-T7, you could do it here, ones with no withholding, or if you had a corrected one. So we'll go next. This is for 1099 miscellaneous. And here is our Add 1099 NEC link. Now, just like the W-2, we'll start by keying in the recipient's information, such as the Social Security number, the name, the street address, all right. And then just like the W-2, we'll enter the financial information. We have box 1, and we'll skip to box 7, the state income. Once completed, you just simply click Add, just like the W-2. Now, however, if you have several forms to key in, or if you get interrupted while working in this, you can click on Save Draft and continue editing. That'll save your draft of your entries in case you have to take a phone call or if the app simply times out. If you're going to leave and finish later, you can choose Finish Later and you can come back up and pick up where you're left off. You'll be able to pick up later by accessing the Search Submissions link from your More tab. Search Submissions, and here is our 1099. If you click it, if you want to continue, you just continue editing and you're going to pick up right where you left off. Click Next. There's the miscellaneous, and look at here. Here is our 1099 we've already keyed in. Well, I think that's it for withholding. So let's send it back to Tom for a few closing remarks.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you to everyone for joining us. If you do have any more questions, please use the contact information on the screen. We'll also be available for a few minutes to finish answering the questions in the chat queue. There's also a brief exit survey sent when we close the webinar after all the questions have been answered. Before we go, just a couple of reminders. Whenever your email or contact information changes, please update it on the Manage My Profile page. Please don't share your login information or password with any other MyTaxAccount users. If you want another user or another person to have access to the business tax accounts, have them register for their own MyTax account. A recorded version of this webinar will be available shortly on our training page. Feel free to share it with colleagues who could not attend the webinar today. Thanks again for attending and have a great day.